I'm Jen,
I'm Nate.
and we are a husband and wife combo who want to bring you all of the fantasy football content that you need.
Let's start. Can we just start from the very beginning? I'm sorry. I love you.
Okay. Hi guys, we're back. Welcome to week 6. We were out in week 5 due to some technical difficulties. We were on a family reunion out in Ohio, and the Wi-Fi was absolutely horrendous. So here we are. I'm Jen.
I'm Nate, and welcome to 32 and 32 Fantasy Football. We're going to hit all 32 teams in 32 minutes today. Actually, it's going to be far less than 32 teams because we now have bye weeks in the Thursday night game. So we're going to hit all the fantasy relevant players coming up on Sunday in the Monday night game, and we're going to give you everything you need to set some matchup winning lineups.
Yep. Absolutely. So let's get into it. First team, I think we should talk about Miami and Jacksonville since they're the London game, first game of the day. The big story in this game will be the return of Tua Tagovailoa from IR after a rib injury sidelined him in week 2. Jacksonville has a bottom tier defense, so there are a few solid plays here. Myles Gaskin finally saw solid usage in the passing attack, and that should continue this week. We'll see. With Devontae Parker not practicing this week, Jalen Waddle could be a solid flex play on volume. And then Mike Gesicki could also see some volume, but we probably wouldn't fire him up unless it's absolutely necessary.
Yeah, Mike Gesicki's been disappointing to say the least. There's a lot of hype for him coming into the season. He just hasn't really lived up to that. Yeah, I agree. I think across the board, good calls. So let's talk about Jacksonville. Okay. They're a mess.
Yeah.
An absolute mess. Until Urban Meyer's gone, I mean, this is a team that's going to be really, really hard to want to play anybody outside of James Robinson. He's definitely a go. Still cautious with Trevor Lawrence. He's looked better. I'm not starting him. We're not starting him unless it's super flex format. I like Dan Arnold this week at tight end. It looks like he's going to see some increased volume. They traded for him. They obviously wanted him to be a part of this offense. They didn't trust James O'Shaughnessy as their number one tight end. Dan Arnold's a solid play if you need a tight end. Laviska Shenault and Marvin Jones could be volume plays this week at wide receiver because somehow Miami actually has a worse defense than Jacksonville, believe it or not. But I mean, honestly, with Shenault and with Marvin Jones, if you have other options this week, I'd probably go that direction with them.
Yeah. Okay, right. So let's head on over to I don't know, Los Angeles and Baltimore. We can talk the Chargers side here first. With this game, it looks to be a shootout. Baltimore has a much improved defense versus what they were at the beginning of the season. This Chargers offense is potent, but this could be a challenge for them. Mike Williams is still dealing with a knee injury, which is something to watch. He could be limited if he plays. Keenan Allen is a start every week for now, as is Austin Eckler, obviously. If Williams is out, both are top tier options this week.
Yep, I agree. It's sounding more like Mike Williams is probably going to play, but still something to pay attention to. If he's hobbled with that knee, that's going to affect his ability to cut and run routes and to create separation.
Yep.
Keenan Allen might finally have that week we've all been waiting for where he just blows up. I know I've been waiting for it. I know you've been waiting for it. Now let's talk about Baltimore. So they're coming off a stellar Monday night comeback against Indy. What a fun game to watch. And I think they're ready to make some more noise. This is a good team. Lamar Jackson is obviously going to be a go. He showed last week that he can sling the ball. So I think the concerns about him as a passer are pretty much gone now. He's looking far more comfortable. I think he's really melding with that team. Hollywood Brown has looked phenomenal. You definitely want to be starting him. He's a guy Lamar Jackson loves. Rashad Bateman is looking like he will finally get a start next week. Probably not this week. If he does start this week, I wouldn't start him. It's his first week in the NFL. He's got some things to figure out. Yeah. Concern. Mark Andrews. He continues to be a solid top tier tight end. You're going to want to start him. As far as the running backs here go, Latavius Murray looks slow. I wouldn't want to start him. He's getting the ball, but he's not doing much with it when he does get it. And he's shown that he can't really be involved in the passing game because there's been a lot of drops, and I think the trust has gone there. Tyson Williams, concerning would be an understatement. He's just not getting usage, and when he does, it's very minimal. So I'd stay away from him in this matchup.
Okay. Yep. All right, over to Minnesota and Carolina. Dalvin Cook is back. He was a full
Yay.
participant at practice on Thursday and again on Friday. It sounds like he'll be good to go for this week 6 matchup with Carolina. That said, Carolina is giving up an average of 11.3 points to the running back position. Is it strange to say that you should sit Dalvin Cook this week? That was hard to say. Probably not. Coming off injury, it's a terrible matchup for him. Kirk Cousins will be a good play this week as well. Adam Thielen and Justin Jefferson have been non-participants in practice this week, but all signs point to both being on the field, but they could be limited. So make sure you check in Sunday morning before you fire either of those guys up. And with that said, KJ Osborne should be a sneaky PPR volume flex this week.
Yeah, I like KJ Osborne in this situation. Even though Carolina has a really good pass defense, I think that on volume, if Thielen and Jefferson are not 100%, he's going to see some looks from Cousins.
Yep,
for sure.
I agree.
All right, so let's talk about Carolina. Okay. Ouch. Christian McCaffrey wowie. To IR again. So we're done with Christian McCaffrey for at least 3 weeks. Now let's move on to the guys who are healthy. Could this be a get right week for Sam Darnold? I think so. He's a good option to start in Superflex formats. I don't know that we'd recommend starting him in a 1 QB league at this point. But again, for Superflex, I think he's a solid option. DJ Moore is going to go off. Regardless of how Sam Darnold looks, DJ Moore is his number 1 target. You're going to want to get him in your lineups. Mm-hmm. Robbie Anderson has been really inconsistent. We're still waiting for him to kind of show that rapport with Darnold. He hasn't done it yet, and it's not looking like it may not happen. So he's someone you probably don't want to be starting this week. Now with the news of Christian McCaffrey being out, Chuba Hubbard looks to have an increase. It will have increased volume in this offense. Royce Freeman is back behind him. But Royce Freeman has been a non-factor, and that'll continue to be the case. He was a non-factor in Denver when he got opportunities. I don't know why anyone thought that was going to change in Carolina. Even with Christian McCaffrey out, forget about him. He's probably not on anyone's roster, but don't go out and try and get him on waivers. Chuba Hubbard is the guy you're going to want. Minnesota is 22nd in rushing yards allowed so far this season, so keep that in mind. Get him in your lineups if you've got him.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Okay. What's up next?
At Green Bay and Chicago. The Green Bay side of this is pretty easy. Aaron Rodgers is someone you're going to start. Devontae Adams is a no-brainer. He's someone you're going to be starting this week. A.J. Dillon's gaining momentum. He had 17.9 points last week against Cincy. I think we like him as a flex option. Aaron Jones is starting to kind of be a little bit concerning here. He's just had a much lower ceiling this season than I think anyone expected out of him, especially with Aaron Rodgers coming back. He's going to get it right, but it's not going to be this week against Chicago.
No, I benched him.
Yeah, I did too. Weeks. I would be benching. As strange as it sounds, I think we have to start thinking about benching Aaron Jones. Mm-hmm. Yep. Tunyon has been a disappointment. He's not doing what we had hoped. He's not replicating his 2020 season. I wouldn't recommend starting him. I don't think either of us would recommend starting Robert Tunyon.
I had a dream about him because of Joey Wright's video.
Great. Just dreaming about Robert Tunyon. Wonderful. Thanks, Joey.
Okay, let's talk about the Bears. They're hurting at running back. David Montgomery is on IR and Damian Williams is on the COVID list. Khalil Herbert is the next man up, and he's someone we want to start if we have him. He's been hot. Everybody's talking about him right now, and
I've written about him twice this week.
Yeah, I don't disagree. He looked great last week when given opportunities, and will take advantage of his chances as the lead back this week. Justin Fields is looking better, but he should still probably be on your bench outside of Superflex formats. Allen Robinson is a concern as well. He's not seeing the targets to make him a viable start in fantasy right now. We keep waiting to see consistency from Darnell Mooney, but again, it's just not there. Like every week, it's like, this is going to be his week, and it isn't.
It just isn't.
That plus he's been limited in practice this week with a groin injury, and that makes him a risky start at best.
Yeah, God, such a bummer about Darnell Mooney. The talent's there. The usage just hasn't been. It'll come. I know it'll come.
Yeah.
Okay,
we just don't know when.
Yeah, no. I wish we knew, man. I wish I had a crystal ball.
Right.
All right, so let's move on to Cincinnati and Detroit.
Okay. Yeah, this is a great week to start Joe Burrow. Same goes for Jamar Chase. T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd are clearly the wide receiver 2 and 3 in this offense, but both should be solid flex plays against a weak Detroit's pass defense. Joe Mixon is looking healthier and should see increased volume. You're going to want to start him. Samaj Perrine is on the COVID list, so Chris Evans could see more volume, but not enough to even roster him just in case. CJ Uzuma should be on your bench this week. His week 4 performance against Jacksonville appears to have been a flash in the pan.
Yeah, it does. I'm not super surprised. The guy's coming off of a torn Achilles tendon.
Right.
So it was cool to see him blow up against Jacksonville. If
Yeah.
you randomly put him in your starting lineup that week, like, kudos to you. It's not going to happen again this season. You can cut CJ Uzuma as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
Okay, so now for Detroit. So Jared Goff's been really up and down. This could be an up week for him, though. He's one of those guys where you're looking for a matchup, and since he's pass defense isn't great. So maybe I would say in Superflex, I feel pretty safe firing up Jared Goff. 1 QB leagues. If he's the quarterback you're thinking about starting, he's probably your only quarterback at this point, so you're going to start him. So yeah, Jared Goff could be a good play this week. DeAndre Swift is definitely a solid play this week for his PPR upside, since he has a really stout run defense. So you're not going to see a lot on the ground from him, but he should get some targets in the passing game. He should get some yards. We could see a touchdown or 2 out of him. Especially Jamal Williams was limited at practice this week, so volume could be a concern for Williams. Even more elevating Swift, you're going to want to get him in your lineup this week. Now, with Quintez Cephas out for the season, more than likely with the broken collarbone, Amon-Ra St. Brown should see some increased volume this week. He's a solid play. He's already been trending up in that offense, and this is just even more reason why he's going to see more targets. Now, the biggest question in this matchup, I think, for us is, will TJ Hawkinson get it together against Cincinnati? Here's to hoping.
Yeah.
Maybe he will. This is definitely a week where I could see him kind of going off. I would start him. Even if you think maybe there's a better matchup out there with another tight end, Hawkinson is still a top 5, top flight tight end, top tier guy. Yeah, so you've got to start him this week.
Yeah, I agree. Yep. Okay, now let's talk about Houston at Indy.
So I'm going to talk about Houston here, if you don't mind.
Yeah, go for it.
Is Davis Mills for real? He's looked awful since Tyrod Taylor went out. And then last week he dropped a gem. So I'm curious to see what he can do this week against Indy. We saw what Lamar Jackson did in the second half against Indianapolis. He shredded that defense. And I'm not saying that Davis Mills is Lamar Jackson, because he's obviously not. The guy has no rushing upside, so don't think he does.
Right.
But this is a situation where I think Davis Mills could be a viable super flex start.
Which is crazy to say.
Yes.
But yeah.
Yeah. Don't shoot us if we're wrong here.
Yeah.
I'm not saying if you have better, I don't start him over someone even like Baker Mayfield necessarily. No. But if you're looking for a dart throw super flex, you're looking like you're going to lose your matchup, fire up Davis Mills. He's probably out there on the waiver wire.
Probably.
Now with that, we've got Chris Moore. Have you ever heard of Chris Moore? Because I'd never heard of Chris Moore before this week. And we know a lot about football, obviously. We have a football podcast.
Yeah.
He had 5 catches for 109 yards and a touchdown. They were his first 5 targets of this entire season. I'm interested to see if this continues with Davis Mills.
Yeah, me too.
If this is a guy Mills is getting comfortable with and is what helping Mills progress.
Yep.
That said, this is something where you kind of want to watch and see what happens.
Yes.
Don't start him this week, but keep him on your radar. He could be a big waiver wire ad down the line. And with Moore's emergence last week, it kind of makes Brandon Cook's lack of production lately even more concerning, because now we have another name out there. So is Brandon Cooks going to get fed? It's risky. He's a risky start, but no risk, no reward. I would fire him up. I really honestly don't think this Chris Moore thing is going to continue to be a thing. I think Brandon Cook's talent wins out here, but we'll see. Definitely start him. Like I said, it's risky, but no risk, no reward. And then the running backs here, every single one of them, absolutely do not start them.
No.
And that's all. Yeah, that there or no.
Okay. All right. After blowing a second half lead against Baltimore last week, this Indy team needs a win, man.
Bad.
That was brutal. They should get it this week against Houston. Carson Wentz, he's a serviceable super flex start, in my opinion. He's not, I mean, I've been poo-pooing on Carson Wentz all season, but, he showed up last week. He looked good. So if you've got a super flex spot open and you're comfortable with it, throw him in there. Jonathan Taylor is making the most of his limited opportunities, and you should have him in your lineups this week. T.Y. Hilton could possibly return this week, but nothing official yet. If he does, I probably wouldn't fire him up just yet. Michael Pittman is a definite go. He has proven himself for sure. His production has been consistent, and that should continue with or without Hilton. Nyheim Hines has been disappointing, and there's nothing to indicate anything that will change anytime soon. He's an emergency play at best this week. Zach Pascal remains touchdown dependent, and he hasn't had enough volume to start him with any confidence, if you ask me.
No, if you ask me, I'm right there with you. Yeah, he's scary. I just literally right before we started recording saw that T.Y. Hilton is going to be active this week, but they're not expecting him to get much usage.
Okay.
So just noted. But Michael Pittman's still a go. I think I agree with that 100%.
For sure.
All right. So our next matchup, we've got the Los Angeles Rams and the New York Giants. I'm going to start on the Rams side here.
Okay.
So Matthew Stafford, he's a smash play. The guys, okay. So I'm going to start with the Rams side here. So Matthew Stafford, he's a smash play. The dude's been balling out all season. There's absolutely no reason to bench him right now. Cooper Kupp is always going to be a go if Stafford is healthy and if Kupp is healthy. They're like besties. I think it was Bo McBrayer who said white boy besties, called them white boy besties. So Kupp is still his number one target. Kupp is going to eat. You're going to want to play him. Robert Woods has seen an increase in volume, which is nice for anyone who drafted him because he was going pretty high in drafts at points. That should continue this week against this Giants defense. So you're going to want to fire him up. Speaking of the Giants defense, their run defense is bad.
Terrible.
It's very bad. Darrell Henderson has looked great. He's looked explosive. So you're going to want to start him. He's due for a big day here. Sony Michel he was decent last week. But he could build on that this week against the Giants if the Rams decide they want to run the ball a little bit more. In a pinch, he's not a bad start. I'd be cautious about starting him over anyone else who's viable.
Darrell Henderson's going to get that if they decide to run the ball more.
He'll get the majority of it. Michelle could have some junk time. We'll have to see. I wouldn't start him unless you absolutely have to. Tyler Higbee, I mean, he still remains incredibly touchdown dependent. He's seeing almost no volume. I wouldn't start him. Jen, would you start him?
I mean, unless I have to, no.
Right. And that's a caveat on a lot of these guys. If we're telling you to bench him, it's always unless you have no other choice.
Right.
Of
exactly.
course. Okay.
Exactly.
All right. So what do you have on the Giants?
Well, after a nasty looking concussion, it appears that Daniel Jones is on track to play this week. He could have a decent super flex value. Darius Slayton and Sterling Shepard are both back, which is awesome, but also we really don't want to start if either is avoidable. Kadarius Toney is trending up. That's all anybody's talking about this week. He had a huge performance last week and should be a solid start, but don't expect a repeat, especially with Shepard and Slayton back because they will get the volume as well. It'll kind of be evenly distributed, I would think. Evan Ingram is a risky start as well. He will get red zone targets, but will he be able to capitalize on those? It's hard to say.
Always a question with Evan Ingram.
Yeah. Always. And Devontae Booker was the hot waiver target this week with Saquon Barkley out. Don't buy the hype. I mean, his performance last week was only his third 20-plus point output of his 6-year career. Should I say that again? Because everyone was going crazy. His performance last week was only his third 20-plus point output of his 6-year career. He's unlikely to repeat it. If you need him in desperation, start him. Otherwise, I'd stay clear.
Yeah. So I just want to remind everyone, Devontae Booker has had tons of opportunities in these kinds of situations to blow it out. He has never done it.
Right.
He has never done it. And it's not going to change this week. So,
Agreed.
Okay. All right. Well, so let's move on to Kansas City and the Washington football team.
Okay.
I feel like you have some things you want to say about Kansas City.
Well, I mean, Kansas City isn't as clear cut this week. We'll start with the obvious. You're starting Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce. Tyreek Hill is out, so we can't say you're starting Mahomes, Kelce, and Hill.
Tyreek Hill actually may play. There's a chance he may play.
Okay.
Now. Yes.
Obviously, if he's playing, you're starting him, but that might have to be a game day decision. all that does is it makes Mecole Hardman a very solid start this week with the incoming increase in volume. Clyde Edwards-Helaire is also out, giving Darrell Williams his first career start. So if you snagged him on waivers this week, start him. With both CEH and Hill out, he should be due for solid touches and some red zone work.
Yeah. I thought Darrell Williams was a better running back than Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Anyway.
We have not sung Clyde Edwards-Helaire.
No. And the thing about Tyreek Hill too is if he does play, he's probably going to be somewhat limited. We're not going to see the explosive speed.
Yeah.
So Mecole Hardman I agree with that. It's weird to say it, but he's a solid start, I think.
Yeah.
All right, so let's jump on over to the Washington football team. Yeah. Taylor Heineke, man, he's looking like the real deal. He's a solid start this week. Kansas City's pass defense is not good. And that's being kind. They're pretty terrible. It's a big part of why their record's sitting at 3-3, which is 2-3. Sorry, which is surprising. So yeah, Heineke's a guy I'm starting in Superflex for sure. In one quarterback leagues, this could be a good matchup play where he kind of knocks it out of the park this week. Terry McLaurin's listed as questionable, and it just came out that they activated wide receiver Antonio Gandy Golden. Man, that's a fun name to say. Yeah, Antonio Gandy Golden. Has been elevated from the practice squad. That kind of signals that they're concerned about McLaurin being able to play Sunday. If he's active, you're going to start him, but be aware and check inactives before the game start to make sure McLaurin is actually active. And I'm not telling you to go out and get Antonio Gandy Golden at all. It's just, it speaks to they're feeling like there's a lack of depth because Curtis Samuel's out again as well. They just need bodies in there that can play. Antonio Gibson is listed as questionable, but should play this week. I would be cautious. I think we both agree we'd be cautious really putting him in our lineups, given that he's been very limited in practice this week. So yeah, proceed with caution there. JD McKissick kind of feels like a trap this week. And I don't know why, because I love JD McKissick, but something about this matchup tells me you shouldn't start him. So you can bench him if you can. We've got Logan Thomas, tight end Logan Thomas on IR. Not super surprising. He seems to get hurt a lot.
He should be back in week 8, though.
Yeah. So when he comes back, he becomes maybe a viable start here. Yeah. For now, they've got Ricky Seals-Jones and Jay Sternberger, who are probably going to be splitting time. If you're pretty needy at tight end, Seals-Jones could have some opportunities in the red zone, making him a decent dart throw at tight end if you need it.
Well, he's tall and he's big, and he'll be easy for Heineke to spot down there.
And you just wrote about him.
I did indeed. Yep. Okay, so over to Arizona and Cleveland. Arizona has been a pleasant surprise so far this season. They're 5-0 right now. Kyler Murray has been good enough to be the overall QB3 this season, behind only Patrick Mahomes and Tom Brady. DeAndre Hopkins has been a tad disappointing, though, currently sitting as the wide receiver 16. That said, both of these guys are smash starts every single week. This week is no different. The running backs are a different story, though. Cleveland is giving up the 5th fewest fantasy points to running backs of any team in the league, and I think it's an even 15 per game, if I remember.
Yeah.
Okay. It would be irresponsible for us to say James Conner or Chase Edmonds are someone we're comfortable starting. Conner does have some touchdown upside with 5 in his last 3 games, so if you must, then start him. Chase Edmonds has yet to score a touchdown and is extremely volume dependent. It's hard to see him being worth a spot anywhere this week. I mean, he's on my bench. And as far as a wide receiver outside of Hopkins go, AJ Green. He's been very solid, minus a poor outing last week, and is worth a look at in a flex position. And the same goes for Christian Kirk.
Yeah, with as good as Cleveland's run defense has been, and with as good as Kyler Murray has been throwing the ball, I think Green and Kirk are both pretty solid flex plays if you have them.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, so now for Cleveland. So Baker Mayfield, man, I was banging the drum for him this season, but he's shown at this point he might not even be worth a start in Superflex.
Sadly.
Well, and especially this week against a very, very good Arizona defense.
Yep.
Nick Chubb headed to IR. Ouch.
Yeah,
that's a real kick to the shins for a lot of us. But that makes Kareem Hunt very attractive start. It's been pointed out to me that Kareem Hunt, when Chubb was out last season, didn't see an increase in volume and really wasn't any better or worse.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's going to be different this week against Arizona because they're going to need him. They're going to need him to be Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb. So I think he's a very attractive start. I mean, in addition to his upside as a receiving threat, like I was just saying, he's going to see a ton more carries. There's hope that Jarvis Landry may play this week after being activated from IR, but we're not going to be rushing to get him in our lineups right now. OBJ has been mostly disappointing since his debut this season. He had that debut. I think he had like 15 points. We were seeing a lot of volume, a lot of looks. It hasn't been the same since. But with Chubb out, he might be called on more, and he could be an interesting flex option.
Yeah.
Yep.
Agreed.
I mean, outside of that, I mean, David Njoku, I don't hate this week. I wouldn't mind throwing him out there. Austin Hooper, not something you want to play.
Yeah.
So
Sounds scary.
Yeah. All right. So that's all I've got on Cleveland. Let's move on to this Dallas New England matchup. So this week, Dallas is facing a New England defense that has been pretty stingy against the pass, minus last week against Davis Mills somehow. We can probably expect them to run the ball a little bit more, making Tony Pollard and Ezekiel Elliott guys you're going to want to start. That doesn't mean you don't want to start Dak Prescott with that pass defense, or Amari Cooper, or CeeDee Lamb, or Dalton Schultz. Just be aware they're probably going to run the ball a little bit more, so you might see a little bit of decrease in volume for Cooper, Lamb, and Schultz. That said, Dalton Schultz has been a top 5 tight end all season. This offense is firing on all cylinders, and it would really be silly to bench any of these guys because of a matchup. I feel like at this point, Dallas is almost matchup proof. There aren't a lot of defenses that are going to stop what they're doing, just slow them down. Kind of how we felt about Kansas City the last few years. So yeah, I mean, you're starting all of these guys this week.
Yep, agreed. So New England, though, is a different story. Dallas is an all-around top-tier defense, like you were saying. Mac Jones isn't flashy and isn't going to put up flashy numbers this week. We'd have him on our bench unless you're in a pinch or you want to put him in a super flex position. Definitely not your starting quarterback.
Yes.
With Damian Harris questionable and Dallas allowing the second fewest rushing yards in the league, we would also say to stay away from him in this backfield. Even if Harris is active, it's probably not in your best interest to start him. And as for wide receivers, Jacoby Myers leads the team in receiving, yet he hasn't grabbed a single touchdown. Hunter Henry, I know, it is wild. Hunter Henry is starting to get rolling and is a decent option at tight end or flex. Jonnu Smith has been disappointing this year so far, but this could be a week where he sees some volume in a pinch. I am not hating Jonnu.
Yeah, I love Jonnu Smith.
I know. I want more for him.
Me too. Friend of the show, Jeff Bell, really got me on board with him. Even more so than I was. So I know he's sad, I'm sad, you're sad, but maybe this is the week it turns around. I mean, we can hope. We can definitely hope.
Yep.
All right, so let's move on to Las Vegas. The Las Vegas Raiders and the Denver Broncos.
What a rivalry, huh?
Yeah, I'm going to let you talk about the Raiders because I get angry sometimes.
Okay. I mean, with the Raiders, what looks so promising to start the season in Las Vegas has fizzled out, it seems. I mean, with the resignation of John Gruden, it's hard to trust anyone on this team in flux. You know, Derek Carr has slowed down after a hot start. It's hard to see him turning it around against a top-notch Denver defense. I don't see it happening. Darren Waller is always a play on volume and red zone targets, so you're obviously going to be starting him. But outside of him, we're hesitant to say you should be starting any other pass catchers here, including Henry Ruggs and Hunter Renfrow. Josh Jacobs could see a decent amount of work, but I'd be cautious with that. If you have another option, I would have Josh Jacobs probably on your bench.
Yep.
Denver's only allowed 344 yards and 2 touchdowns to running backs so far this season. Kenyon Drake is a bench this week if you have him. Obviously, if we said Josh Jacobs bench him, we're benching Kenyon Drake as well. And I feel like I didn't even need to say any of that.
No, I mean, I think Kenyon Drake is someone you can drop at this point.
Yeah.
He has zero fantasy value. If he's still on your roster, get him out of there. Pick up someone like Khalil Herbert or Ricky Seals-Jones.
Yep. Absolutely.
Okay, so the Denver Broncos. Who are the Denver Broncos? I mean, at this point, it's really hard to tell if they're the weeks 1 through 3 Broncos or the weeks 4 and 5 Broncos. That's a real problem for fantasy football because we don't know what we're going to see every week now.
Right.
Teddy Bridgewater started out hot, but has come back down to earth since his concussion. He looked great in the fourth quarter last week against the Steelers, almost brought Denver back. But it's hard to trust that he can replicate that against a defense that's only allowing 16.7 points per game to the quarterback position and 22.8 to wide receivers, which is both top 10 in the league. Cortland Sutton should still get his targets and provide decent upside, so I'd start him. Tim Patrick is going to be a sit for us this week. I just don't think the volume is going to be there against Vegas. Noah Fant could see some volume, especially in the red zone. I think we like him a lot this week as a start. Melvin Gordon was limited in practice on Friday. Surprise, surprise, and is listed as questionable. So it seems reasonable that Javonte Williams will lead the Denver backfield this week. He's the one out of the two of those running backs you're going to want to start. Javonte Williams, I think this is his chance to take over that backfield.
Please, God, please.
Man, as a Bronco fan, I'm excited. As a fantasy football fan and player and manager, I'm very excited too. I think Javonte Williams, this is the week we see him bust out against this Vegas defense.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. All right. So up next, we have the Seattle Seahawks and the Pittsburgh Steelers. Russ Wilson, he's not going to be cooking. Mr. Unlimited has indeed been limited and has been relegated to injured reserve for the first time in his career.
It's so sad.
So sad. So sad. Now we get to have Geno Smith behind center. Smith looked good in relief of Wilson last week, but does anyone really think that's sustainable? We don't. Over here at 32 and 32 fantasy football. The situation seems to dictate more of a run-heavy approach against Pittsburgh, which now may not be possible given the fact that Chris Carson is also on IR and Rashad Penny has still not been activated from IR. We've got a backfield this week of Alex Collins and DJ Dallas. Oh, and Travis Homer, of course. Alex Collins looks to be the guy here with Chris Carson out. So if you've got him, if you picked him up on waivers this week, go ahead and start him. You might have DJ Dallas already. I would not. We would not. No one should be starting him. No. So that said, Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf, they're both kind of a risky start. Out of the two, I'm okay with DK Metcalf simply because he's a big body for Geno Smith to throw to and to target. Outside of that, I mean, I'm not really wanting to start much with the Seattle team this week.
No, Seattle's going on my back burner this week. They're we got to get through this week and then we can talk about starting any of them again.
See what happens with Pittsburgh. This is a team in flux with the injury to Russell Wilson. A ship without its captain, if you will. Yeah. So we'll see what happens here.
Okay. Now for the Steelers, Big Ben is going to be someone we tell you to avoid starting every week from here on out unless something crazy happens. Najee Harris is someone we're going to tell you to start every week from here on out. So now that that's out of the way, we can talk about Juju Smith-Schuster, who's headed to IR this week, making Deontay Johnson and Chase Claypool both solid options, especially this week against Seattle's mediocre defense. Pat Freiermuth, I always say his name wrong. Pat Freiermuth should see more targets with the Juju injury, but still probably not enough to start him anywhere if you can plug someone else in, and the same goes for Eric Ebron.
Yep, pretty cut and dry with the Steelers this week, for sure.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to move on to Buffalo and Tennessee. I'm going to let you talk about the Buffalo. I'll let you. Oh, geez. I'm in trouble.
Hilarious.
Okay.
Okay, I will talk about Buffalo because I'm choosing to talk about Buffalo because I think they're the real deal. Josh Allen is rolling and winning fantasy matchups all over the place. Zach Moss has emerged as a solid RB2 with red zone upside. You want both of these guys in your lineups this week against a weak Tennessee defense. Stephon Diggs has struggled as of late, but this should be a week where he goes off. I would definitely start him. Emmanuel Sanders has been a surprising wide receiver too in Buffalo. He's a smash play this week as a flex, and he will continue to see the volume in the red zone targets. Cole Beasley, he kind of flamed out after a few big games early on and is a risky start at best. If you have other options, go with them. And Dawson Knox, man, he has been stellar at tight end and has become a regular red zone target for Allen. So if you were lucky enough to grab him, you are definitely starting him.
Yep, I love me some Dawson Knox.
Yeah,
I had a feeling this was his year, and I was
you
right.
You did.
I talked about him a lot.
Called it. Mm-hmm.
Yep. Okay, so now for Tennessee.
Yep, let's wrap it up.
What happened to Ryan Tannehill? Did they secretly hire Adam Gase as a consultant? And just maybe they brought in Adam Gase's brother. I don't know, but he's been a shell of himself so far this season.
Yeah.
That's not going to change this week against Buffalo.
Nope.
They've got one of the stoutest defenses all around in the league. And even with Julio Jones and A.J. Brown back this week, there still isn't much hope that Tannehill is worth starting.
No.
He should be on your bench. You've got other options. And really, I feel like, I hate to say this, but Julio Jones and A.J. Brown might be benchable this week. If you have other high ceiling options, you've got guys like Deontay Johnson, Chase Claypool, Cortland Sutton. Any of those guys, I would be putting Brown and Jones on the bench. This is too good of a defense. Painful. Ryan Tannehill just hasn't looked great. They've been borderline anyway. Mm-hmm. And now going up against this Buffalo defense, God, sucks. But yeah, I think they might be benchable this week. Yeah. That said, Derrick Henry, he's going to be the offensive workhorse this week.
Obviously.
You're going to start him.
Yep. We don't have to say that anymore.
No, I don't think so.
Okay, I think that's it. We might be over our time.
Yep, I think that's all, folks. Thanks for tuning in this week. We hope that you get out there and win your matchups. Make sure you're following us on Twitter at 32 and 32FF, on Instagram, on TikTok, the same thing. And if you're listening, make sure you're subscribing on your favorite podcast platform. And if you're watching the show, hi. Make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel so you don't miss a show. And next up, we will have the Waiver Wire Show with David Cruz coming on Tuesday, folks.
Yes, and if anybody knows how to get on Apple Podcasts without an Apple product, I greatly appreciate your assistance in helping me agree and consent to the media, whatever it is, because I can't figure it out. As soon as I figure it out, we'll be on Apple. But until then, I mean, I've called them twice. They've called me back twice. I've done emails. I need help, y'all.
Jen needs help. Hit her up.
Send me help.
Yep. All right, guys. That's it for us this week. Okay. We'll see you next week.
Have a great week.